markets, speculation, and risk. This is the Chat with Traders podcast, hosted by Aaron Fifield.
Hey guys, what's happening? I'm your host, Aaron Fifield. Here we are, episode 63, and I have another brilliant and very experienced guest lined up for you this week. Her name is Nicola Duke, or at Nick Trades on Twitter. She's a professional swing trader from the UK, actively tracking 36 futures and Forex markets, who takes a technical and systematic approach to trading. Some of the highlights from our conversation would include hearing about how Nicola's typical trading day used to start at 1:30 a.m., learning that her mentor never showed her a single setup or gave her a single trade idea, the concept of preserving mental capital, and insight to how she trades with a systematic approach. But really, that's just a teaser, and we cover so much more during the interview. Now, you may also like to know Nicola is open to answering any questions you might have. So if there's something you'd like to ask, leave a comment at chatwithtraders.com/63. And the second link I need you to remember is chatwithtraders.com/iTunes. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave an iTunes review. It'll take you no more than 2 minutes, and it helps more than you can imagine. So please do this just while you're listening. Go to chatwithtraders.com/iTunes. Okay, team, here's this week's interview. You're listening to the Chat with Traders podcast. Here is my guest, who I was thrilled to have the opportunity to speak with, Nicola Duke. Hey, Nicola, nice to be speaking with you. How's it going?
Hi, Aaron. Really good, thanks.
Excellent. Thanks so much for coming on. There's so much I want to ask you about. Let's just get started. So if you could, Nicola, share with us how you first got into trading. Where did this all begin for you?
When I was like a teenager, my mom gave me some money and that I could buy stocks with. So I've always had a few stocks and shares, and but I was an investor. I really wasn't a trader. And then I was in the RAF, and then I was a civilian air traffic controller at Heathrow, and I found out that they had conducted an experiment at Heathrow. A bank called Chemical Bank had recruited a bunch of controllers and tried to teach them to be traders. And the only one that made it was the woman, who did really, really well. And I was like, that was so awesome. If I had been there, then it would have been me, So I kind of had this little bug in my head, and I kind of always wanted to do that, but I really didn't have anyone in my family or any role models, or didn't know anybody who worked in the city. So I really had no one to help me go in that direction when I was younger. And I think that's really important for people. So, much later on, I was running an air charter company in Toronto, and I met a guy who wrote Victor Sperendio, his book, a trading book, which is, technical analysis book. And he said, here, I Ghost wrote this book, have a copy. I was like, oh, this is really cool. And I was like, holy cow, I could do this. So I'd made a bit of money by then, and I had some aside. So I really just, instead of just investing, I thought, well, I'll try trading, FX. I started it with FX, like a lot of people do, because I don't know, the marketing makes you think it's quite easy or whatever. So it wasn't. But so I was still running my company, and I would get up at 2 a.m. and trade the London Open, and then, do a full day's work. And I really didn't have much other life, and not much sleep. But I really got the bug big time, to the point where a year later, I said, right, I'm going to sell my company and do this full time and move back to the UK. So
excellent. Okay, well, that's an awesome overview, Nicola. So let's pull this apart a little bit. I want to find out more and dive a little deeper. So, as you mentioned, you were an Air Force traffic controller for a couple of years there. Do you feel as though there were any skills from your job which perhaps were helpful as you started trading?
I think, it's quite easy to say, oh yeah, I was really good at recognizing patterns and things moving. But I think that the major skill was, it's very uncomfortable when you're an air traffic controller because you feel like the whole time, your minutes, especially at a very busy airport, you're like minutes from disaster. And quite often that's that feeling that you have when you're trading, but you still have to make really good decisions and you still have to stick to your rules or your plan and not react to your gut or uncomfortableness. And I suppose that's probably the major skill because, a lot of the time trading isn't comfortable or simple or makes you feel good until it stops usually. So
yeah, and I think you kind of, as we were speaking, before we hit record, you kind of mentioned it as you need to be almost like comfortable with being uncomfortable, which I thought was a really interesting point you made. So once you did decide you were going to put some money towards this and you were going to start trading, put some money on the line and commit to it, what was your very first year like? Were there any great successes or failures that you experienced?
Yeah, I joined a live trading room, which I found really helpful. And I learned so much from people. And I don't think, people should trade alone or at least have a mentor. And so that was really good. But, I blew my first real money. I thought, on demo, like everybody else, that I was the queen of trading, that I could do anything. And then as soon as, I put some real money on the line, it was very, very different. And I blew my first account, I think probably within a month. And I never did again. I never blew another account up again. But I think everybody has to go through that experience to learn how it feels. So it wasn't really funny. And, at the end of my first year, by then I got a mentor who really helped me with discipline. And I got to the end of my first year about flat, and he said, that's it, you're going to make it. He said, because most people don't get to the end of their first year flat. They lose much more. So I would say that's a good rule for people. If you can survive it without blowing up, you'll probably make it.
So that was kind of like a milestone for you to get to the point where you'd blown up past accounts and lost some money to actually getting to a point where you would just break even. Like that's a considerable milestone to reach. Is that what you're kind of saying there?
Yeah, it definitely was. So yeah, I blew up my first account, within a month, and then I got to the end of my first year and I was flat. And he said, "You know what? You're probably going to make it. You'll do all right." So when you said you blew up an account, how much money are we talking there? Was it a significant amount or just a few $1,000s? It was $10,000. So, I felt it. But, it was enough to go, okay, stop being silly and get, wise up.
Yeah. So when you went from trading on sim to live trading, what were some of the challenges that you perhaps weren't expecting?
I really thought, I was older, wiser. I didn't need the money. So I really thought that the mistakes of like real money accounts and the thing that does to your head wouldn't happen to me. And it did happen to me anyway. And it happened to me. So even though I could afford to lose the money and it wasn't like the end of the world, it still messed with my head. So, and I learned that, and I learned with the help of a mentor, I learned an awful lot of skills. So even that I still use today to minimize using mental capital. So I will be very careful timing an entry because I don't want to spend days and days offside in a position if it's a long-term position. I will do everything to make myself feel more comfortable when I'm trading to minimize that feeling. So I still make good decisions trading wise. And he would make me do things like if I had a really bad day, if I had a bad day or a losing day, but I stuck to every one of my rules, I will go and do something really nice to cheer myself up, like eat sushi, have a pedicure, be really nice to myself. Because if you stick to all your trading rules and you still lose money, there's nothing you could have done. That's just how it is. But if you make a load of money and you break all your rules, you open a tin of beans and go to bed early.
Yeah. So, no, that's excellent. Now, you've mentioned a mentor there a couple times. How did you, I know a lot of people listening probably wish that they had someone who was like a mentor figure in their trading journey. How did you meet this person, and what sort of ways did they help you? I know you've mentioned discipline there, but what was most beneficial about the experience of having a mentor?
I met him. He's actually a friend of Tom Dante's. I met him in on a trading forum. There was a small group of us that used to share ideas, and like any trading forum, nobody really knew who anybody else was. We kept it. There wasn't any chat or banter. It was quite, just market stuff. And yeah, he just sent me a message one day and just gave me a bit of advice, and I was like, oh wow, thanks so much. And it just kind of grew from there. And I had no idea who he was, and turns out he was a trader at a fund, and he really helped me. He really helped me with things that you don't know about how the market works. He really helped me with discipline and mental attitude, to literally get rid of all emotion from trading, because it's got no place in it at all. And you don't go whoop whoop when you have a big winner, and it's not the end of the world when you have a loser. It's just another day at the coalface. That's just how it is, I suppose. And I think new traders struggle with that, or don't really, sometimes they can, I don't know, maybe it's a male thing. Sometimes there's a lot of testosterone around. I'm quite introvert as well, so I could go to an office every day with a bunch of other people, but I don't do very well with people who shout at the markets and screams when things aren't going well and that kind of thing. I like it to really quiet and cool. So
excellent. So it allows you to think straight.
And he taught me. That is very important. Yeah, he taught me a lot about preserving mental capital, sticking to rules. It's just another trade, doesn't matter. Risk management, those kind of things.
The important things.
The really important things, yeah. And he told me I was trading the same setups. He never, ever gave me a single trade idea or taught me a setup. He literally only kicked me into shape mentally, but it made the difference between making money and not making money.
It's really interesting, actually, how, to hear that he never showed you a setup or showed you what to trade. Yeah.
Never showed me a single setup, never suggested a single market or a trade idea ever.
Okay.
It was all about helping me make my trading system better, which was really cool.
So to continue on that, are there any tips or pointers that you might be able to share with listeners on how they could potentially find someone who could provide some sort of similar mentoring?
I think that you need to join communities and meet like-minded people and who trade like you, or who've been around and done it for a while. And I think if you show yourself to be sort of really motivated and respectful, that somebody may well come along and help you. I've helped a couple of people, not full time really. I've really struggled. I think, I feel like I don't even like saying, oh, I've made it, even though it feels like I should say that because I'm trading professionally. But I just feel like it's always one long journey, even if you've been doing it for 15 and 20 years, you're always learning, so. But yeah, I think that really in communities of other traders, don't trade alone. Trade with other people, join a trading room, a live trading room. There will always be people there who know more than you, who will help you and who will give you advice about other things that will help you. Because I've learned things from so many places, and I suppose my strategy is a combination of so many different little things that I've learned that I've put together, and most people, when they start learning, they think, oh, there isn't that much to this. And then once you get going, you realize there's so much more, you're always learning something, even if your strategy itself is really simple. So.
No doubt. I agree with you 100% on that one. Can you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit more about your time living in Toronto? I mean, you briefly touched on it earlier, but I really want listeners to hear this because I think it shows an incredible amount of determination and hustle, and it's probably going to put most of us to shame. So what was your time like living in Toronto? Because I know you were getting up extremely early to trade the markets. Like, walk us through like your typical day.
Oh yeah, no, I would get up sort of 1:30, 1:45, and I would start trading at the London Open, which was 7 a.m. in London, 2 a.m. my time, and I would do that until you know sort of probably midday or late morning London time, and then it would be wake up time. I would go out, walk my dogs, make something to eat, and run my business through the day, take a look at the markets. At lunchtime I would stop, for the US Open for an hour or two, and then I would literally walk my dogs again, have something to eat, and I'd be in bed by 6:30. I literally had no social life at all for 2 years. But I was so determined that I could do this, and my weekends I would like pore over charts and catch up business and do accounts, and it was worth it, but it was really, it was 2 years of not very much sleep.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's really impressive and it's obviously paying off now. So yeah, I mean, props to you for that. That's awesome. So when did you arrive at a point where you felt comfortable to leave the business behind and rely solely on your trading for income?
I think that if I was waiting for that point where I felt comfortable, I would never have done it. So I really did take a bit of a leap of faith. I just felt like I had to do it. So I was, making a small amount of money. I probably did it too soon, but that was okay. I think, everybody's journey in the market has a few knocks and bumps. That it's what keeps you from getting too full of yourself, I think. So I probably did it too soon, but I really wanted to. I was so passionate about the markets. And, I'd been trading for a couple of years, and then 2008 happened, and I couldn't do both. And there was a lot of money to be made, So I think I'm not going to say, I only ever got profitable because of that, because I have been since then. But that was really, what did it for me, Plus, when that happened, people weren't lining up for air charter anymore. So I probably sold my business just in time. And so that was kind of a good decision, really.
Great. Okay. Well, Nicola, let's talk a little bit more about how you're actually trading, in today's market. So can you give us some insight to the type of trader you are today, and how would you describe your approach to markets?
I'm pretty much a swing trader. I use Fibonacci patterns for support and resistance, and to identify levels where I want to get involved with the market, either levels where I think the market will reverse or retrace back to where I can get an entry. And I use, believe it or not, because people think it's old-fashioned, I use lower time frame moving averages and a Heikin-Ashi system to get me in and out. That's like a trigger for entry.
Okay. So what markets do you mostly focus on? Like, what markets are you most active in? And what's your average holding time for your swing trades?
So I used to, I learned FX, and then for a couple of years I just traded oil. And now I look at 36 markets. So I look at, and I don't trade them all every day. I just swing trade them. So 9 stock indexes, 5 bonds, copper, gold, silver, then the major FX and oil, and then some agricultural, which scare me witless, the grains and stuff, but they're my best performing market on paper. So at the moment, so you can't ignore that. And I suppose in my mind's eye, in my head, like I know what I'm looking for. So I'll scan through the weekly and daily charts, and I'll identify what I think are the best opportunities or the ones I want to trade that week. And then I'll do that same thing on a daily basis. And then I probably look for hourly entries. I have held trades for 6 weeks. My average trade is a couple of days. Lately, the last couple of months, my holding time has been much shorter just because of volatility. But I would say in 2015, I would try and hold trades for 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you've described to me off air when we were talking beforehand that you were originally a complete discretionary trader, but today you take more of a systematic approach from what I understand. What led you in this direction?
I really think particularly in very volatile markets, that discretionary trading is very hard. It's, very hard emotionally. And so I found it easier to, if you have a number of setups that you use, you can scan the markets and you can identify the ones you want to trade. I suppose my discretion now is limited to what I want to trade, but how I trade them now is all rules based. So I know what I want to see for an entry trigger. I know what will get me out. I know what I need to see to move a stop, take profit, and so all of that now is systematic.
Okay, and how did you discover that strategy that you trade, or the few strategies you trade? Like, was there any quantitative analysis involved in that?
No. I used to do a lot of back testing. Yeah, I used to do a lot of back testing. If I took this much profit here and did that, what difference would that make? And I did a lot of that. Thanks to my mentor. So he was very big on that.
Okay, and how were you doing the back testing? Like, was it just Excel spreadsheets, or did it involve
Excel spreadsheets? Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And how many strategies would you try and back test and that type of thing before you actually found something that was a viable trading strategy?
I probably that back then I think I had 3 or 4 strategies, and I probably only have 2 now.
Okay.
So I've narrowed them down, but I suppose that I've used aspects of them in my rule application. So I will say, well, if that happens, then that's a no-no, time to watch out for a reversal or that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay.
So
excellent. Now, I don't expect you, obviously, to give away all your secrets, but can you share can you share an example for some of the types of rules in your system?
Yeah, I like, I won't move a stop until it's made a new high or a low. So because I like to give a market time to bounce around, or those kind of rules. I will look at closing prices, so either hourly or daily, relative to the moving averages that I follow. So a close below a 50 moving average will get me out always. That kind of thing I look at, yeah.
Okay, and are there any time of day rules that you have incorporated in your strategy?
Yeah, definitely have time of day rules. I wouldn't, for example, I'm talking to you in the evening, I wouldn't take a trade now unless it was an Asia market, like the Japanese or Australian, or I've got limits for the Hang Seng. I don't trade that very much, but yeah, I don't trade. I try to trade as close to the market open as possible, if I have a setup, because that's when the market has the most momentum. So, for example, if I'm trading the London session, I probably won't put a trade on past 10:30 in the morning. I'll wait for the US Open, just because I like to see them work. I don't like being offside. Everything has to line up, and then I want to see it work. And if it doesn't, I don't want to be sitting chopping around in an offside position for too long. Just because, not because it's that bothers me that, but it's mental capital that you don't need to spend really. So save it for something else.
For sure. I like that. I like how you describe mental capital. I think that's a really valuable
Yeah,
term.
It's just as important as your money. You don't want to get to the end of the day and be completely washed out, because you've spent a load of mental capital you didn't need to.
Mm-hmm.
doing stupid stuff and waiting for it to work again. And sometimes people message me and they'll say, I'm in this position and what do you think of it? And I say, well, it kind of depends where you enter. And, they'll be like massively offside. And I think that that's probably you have to know where you're wrong and take your hit and your stop. If your setup hasn't worked, get out, and I see far too many people, endlessly patient with losers. Don't be. It's just like it will eat you up. That's all you'll think about is your one trade that's not working, and you want to be looking at all the good things that are setting up. So cut your losers.
Great advice. Great advice. What areas of your trading still have some discretion? I think you may have touched on this a little bit earlier, but I want to know how you sort of work discretion into trading a systematic approach. And just to add on to that, is there any reason why you haven't actually automated your strategy?
I have thought about automating it. I'm now at a place where we have the people that would do that for us, and there have been some discussions. I would say, if I have 6 markets that all have the same setup, my risk rules say that I can only risk 3% of my account at any one time. So I then have to, decide, am I going to split my risk between all of them, or which are the best ones I'm going to do? So my discretion, I suppose, would be refining what I want to trade. But sometimes, there isn't anything, or lately, there's less and less. So I would say that's the major discretion. Or I'll have a setup in something, and if there's a big news event, that will keep me out or make me wait. So that's how my discretion mainly applies now.
Okay, so just so I understand that clearly, so the main discretion is in actually selecting which markets you're going to trade, and then the system is for how you actually enter, manage, and exit those trades, essentially.
Exactly.
Cool.
Yes.
Excellent. So what impact, if any, does fundamentals have on your analysis?
I avoid news events if I can, which is quite hard because I'm half of a trading team now, which has been quite a revelation for me. And it hasn't all been, easy, especially as he's someone who trades very differently to me. And there have been some, quite good rows, very good rows. And he's a bit of he doesn't mind a news event or two, whereas I avoid them like the plague. So I would say I'm aware of news events and fundamental and what's moving the market, but I still take decisions purely technically, and that's because I look at sentiment a lot, and I look at market positioning. So to me, it doesn't matter if every fundamental says we should be buying something. If the whole world is long, it's only going to come off, and you want to be selling it. So that's, I would say, I pay more attention to positioning and sentiment than I do to fundamentals. Those are my fundamentals.
Okay, sure.
Ever watch a stock rip and think, I could have nailed that if I had real capital? The truth is, many capable traders never reach their potential, not due to lack of skill, but lack of scale. Trade the Pool was built to solve exactly that. A firm designed for serious individuals who want access to the U.S. equity markets with meaningful buying power, up to $200,000 without committing their own capital. Get access to virtually every stock and ETF. Go long or short freely with the flexibility professional traders expect. You're evaluated on one thing: your ability to manage risk and execute with consistency. Meet the standard, and you trade at scale. No subscriptions, no ongoing commitments. Whether you're still refining your strategy, a trader with experience who hasn't yet broken through, or a seasoned professional simply looking for more capital, Trade the Pool is built to meet you where you are and take you that next step further. The markets have evolved, access has evolved, now so has the way traders operate within them. Trade the Pool.
So can you tell us a little bit about your scanning routine and how you actually select which markets you'd like to trade for, that week or that day?
So yeah, like top down, I like the start of the month. I look at monthly charts, then I look at a weekly chart, and then I look at a daily chart. And I select my trades without looking below a daily chart, and then I'll look for entries lower rather than, I see people that will just like, I think this really bad habit, and I did it a little bit in the start. You just like flick through lower time frame charts looking for something to trade. That's not, I just don't think that, planning is everything, and that's not how you do it. So, well, unless that's your system, and if you're a very short term trader, obviously, and people who only trade one market, that's different. But if you, like me, if you have a number of them, then I think, trade selection is quite important. So I do spend a lot of time on it. Even though it doesn't always work that well. Sometimes you think, how did that happen? But that's what you try to do.
Yeah, you're always going to get those curveballs. So when you are looking at those higher time frames, though, what are some of the things you're actually looking for on the chart? I notice you use, from just scrolling through your Twitter feed, that you use Fibonacci levels quite a lot and moving averages.
I do Fibonacci harmonic patterns and moving averages. So I'm looking for levels where I think it reversed, and I look for measured moves. So each swing that a market makes, I usually has a mathematical relationship to the previous one and to the next one. So I look at those relationships. I like to see symmetry, equal measured moves, or Fibonacci relationships between them. So if the first swing higher in a market went X amount, then the next one, I like to see it either equal or 1.618 of the previous swing, and I'll mark all those levels and see where they line up. So I'm looking for confluence. So I would say that I look at Fibonacci retracements. I look at Fibonacci extensions. So that's extensions of corrective swings. And I look at expansion. So relationship between the swings. So three things. So if I get three areas, those three things lining up at a level, that's confluence for me. So that's three things that all agree. And so that for me is a high probability area for either a reversal, or if it continues, then you've got a support level that you can lean against or put your stop against.
Okay. Now this might be a little bit of a tricky question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. With the Fibonacci levels, why do you think the market reacts at certain Fibonacci levels? Like, why are Fibonacci levels relevant to the actual price?
I think it's just mathematics. Okay. And if you think about it, like, look what, even in FX, look what percentage of the market is now traded by computers. Well, some quant guy did not program his computer to be random. He programmed it using mathematical ratios or events. So I would say, people who say, technical analysis is rubbish and whatever, I would say it's actually becoming more and more relevant, because these algorithms and these trend following systems, this is what they're using. And so that is why it works. And that is why it is maths based, which is really, that's what Fibonacci is. So
yeah. Okay. Now that's an interesting point you raise, actually. All right, Nicola. Well, let's move on to. I've got a few more general trading questions here, so just kind of moving off your systematic approach a little bit. In your view, what qualities make for a good trader?
People who plan and who are disciplined. So I think people who can make a plan and stick to it. The ability to make good decisions even when you feel uncomfortable. In other words, for me, that's stick to your plan. I think are the most important qualities. And I think it's really hard work. And I don't think that people should underestimate how hard work it is. All these adverts that tell you can learn in an hour a day, you can learn in an hour a day and then you can make money, 5 minutes a day before you go to your other job, is rubbish. It's a lot of work, and but it's very rewarding. So
absolutely. And when I had Tom Dante on the podcast, he did a great job of reminding us how competitive trading really is. And another quote, which is one of my favorites from a past interview, is too many people treat trading like a hobby. So I thought that was also really valid as well.
Yeah, no, it's not a hobby. Actually, he is quite competitive. He might be one of the most competitive people I know. So, apart from the guy I have to trade with. So, I would say that I'm not competitive though, and I don't think that that is important. Like, you're not, you know, I see people get really depressed, when other people looks like other people are doing really well and they had a bad day. You're not competing with any of those other traders. Like, it's just you and your profit and loss, and you're only accountable to yourself. Like, I think it's really important that you don't compete with anybody except yourself. And the only thing you're trying to do is be better than you were yesterday or last week or last month. And so this idea that you're competing, I know Tom sees the market as very much him and them, and they're on the other side, and he's not going to let him damn well beat him. I suppose it is a good way to think of that. When I sometimes think about it, like, if I feel like I'm being squeezed in a position, if I put a trade on and I see the market trying to squeeze people out and I don't want to get squeezed out, I want to stay on, then I sometimes get that feeling. I know how he feels, but at the end of the day, it is just you and your P&L, and it's just about you getting better. And so, compete with yourself, cooperate with others.
Right. Okay, I like it. I guess we could maybe just reverse that question and you could reverse that answer, but what's the reason you believe why the majority of traders never succeed?
I think that they are not able to overcome the mental obstacles about money and losing money and making money. And it's why do most people who gamble losers? And yet there are some people who are professional gamblers who do really well. You need a certain mindset. You need to be very disciplined. You need to not take it personally. It's and I think it's much hard. That aspect of it is much harder than most people realize. So not everyone's cut out to do it. It's like the hardest simple thing to do, because it is simple ultimately what we do. We're either buying or selling, or we're sitting on our hands. But it's the hardest simple thing there is to do.
Yeah. No, that's you summed that up really nicely, actually. Okay, so are there any resources that you would recommend to other traders, either books, blogs, something that you find helpful on sort of an ongoing basis, or maybe even any other traders that you follow on Twitter, or anyone whose views and opinions that you value?
Do you know, I have a really long list of really awesome traders that I really do look up to. Every single one of them I either follow on Twitter or I tweet their stuff if I see something good all the time. So there are a number of technical analysts I've learned from, right from classical chart patterns, because I look at all of like classical chart patterns. I don't think there's anyone better than Peter Brandt, but there's so many people. So I would say, everyone that I like, I try to retweet. I don't know how, honestly, people learnt to trade before the internet. Because, I remember the first guy that taught me, he used to ring up every day and get the prices, and he used to plot them on a graph. Like, they weren't even on a computer, And I remember when I first started with stocks, I would get the prices out of the newspaper and late. So, that's how I plotted how my trades were doing, when I was a teenager. So then now there's so much you can learn on the internet for almost nothing if you're determined to look for it. So
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're really lucky.
Yeah, for sure. Now, I want to ask you this question. I've been getting a few emails lately of people asking me this, so I thought I'd perhaps put it to some of the guests that I have on the podcast. What platform do you use to trade with? And perhaps, just to add on that, what type of trader is that platform best suited to?
I chart. Okay, I chart at the moment on CQG, which is really expensive. It's a very powerful tool. And it's quite amazing because it doesn't even draw harmonic patterns, which is mostly what I look for. I draw them myself. But it is very expensive. I think we pay over £1,000 a month for it. And so I use that. We use that for charting, and then we use TTX Trader for our trades. So that's what I use as a professional. I really like Trading View charts from Saxo Bank. I really like pro real-time charts for my UK stock trades. And they're quite inexpensive and good for anyone. And they have really good stock screeners as well. So you can screen for moving average crosses and stuff that's close to support and resistance and that kind of thing. So I like pro real-time as well. Before that, I originally learnt on MT4, I think, like everyone else. And I really missed it when I left it because it was so simple. You could just do anything, I felt like.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I'll make sure to include all of those links in the show notes. They'll be at chatwithtraders.com/63. Now, Nicola, where can listeners go to find out more about you?
Oh, I don't tell people very much, but I'm on Twitter at NickTrades, so @ NICTRADES. Yeah, and I usually post what I'm up to or looking at there.
Excellent. So go follow Nicola on Twitter at NickTrades. Now, one day I'm going to remember to ask this question before I hit the record button, but would you be open to answering any questions that listeners may have in the comments area of this interview?
Definitely. I will remember to look in and I will answer any questions.
Awesome. So guys listening, go to chatwithtraders.com/63, scroll to the bottom of the page and leave any questions in the comments area that you'd like Nicola to answer. And Nicola, I'll give you the heads up on any questions that come through. So
okay, that's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you very much for doing that. And yeah, it's been really awesome to speak with you. So thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's late evening for you, but it's been a great interview.
Great. No, thank you so much, Aaron. I really appreciate your interest.